Good afternoon, and welcome to the installation of Shelby Stephenson as Poet Laureate of the state of North Carolina. I am Wayne Martin, Executive Director of the North Carolina Arts Council, and I'm delighted to welcome you. For almost 50 years, the North Carolina Arts Council has worked to create a network of arts organizations in all 100 counties, organizations that provide arts to our citizens, spark creativity in our students, enliven our downtowns, and attract visitors to North Carolina. However, we have not traveled from near and far to honor the arts infrastructure, as vital as that is. Today, we celebrate the source of the artistic experience, the place where it begins, the individual artist who brings an inspired and heightened sense of creativity to our world and helps us see things in new ways and with greater depth, insight, and feeling. The importance of the individual artist in our state is especially evident in the field of literature. North Carolina writers, and I'm honored that many of you here today are among that group, have created poems, short stories, novels, scripts, and plays that speak powerfully to the people of this state, but not only to the people of this state, to our nation and even the world. So the Poet Laureate is specifically a symbol of North Carolina's achievement in poetry and, in a larger sense, of our state's literary contributions to America's cultural legacy. And for these reasons, it's fitting that we gather together today on this occasion to celebrate our newest Poet Laureate. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Secretary Susan Kluttz, who is our leader at the Department of Cultural Resources. Secretary Kluttz served as mayor of the city of Salisbury for 14 years before coming to Raleigh. As secretary, she has embraced the Poet Laureate program, and in fact, she led the selection panel that had the challenge of evaluating so many outstanding nominees. Her personal interest and involvement is not surprising, for throughout her life of public service, Secretary Kluttz has been a champion for the arts. Will you please make her welcome?
Thank you, Wayne. This is such an exciting day in North Carolina. And I want to say welcome especially to Shelby Stephenson's family, to his friends, members of the state literary community, and fellow citizens. Thank you to the members of Cabinet who are here, Council of State, and legislators as well. First of all, I would like to say to Joseph Bethanti, you have done such an excellent job as our Poet Laureate, especially in your work with our most special population, our veterans. Thank you for your service. I would also like to express my deepest appreciation to the outstanding people who served as panelists to make recommendations to the governor. Tony Abbott of Davidson, a professor emeritus of English at Davidson College, author of 7 books of poetry and 2 novels. Bob Anthony, curator of the North Carolina Collection and the director of the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Randall Keenan, a professor of English at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Lorraine Hale Robinson, English Department Emeritus Faculty at East Carolina University and longtime Senior Associate of North Carolina Literary Review. Kevin Morgan Watson of Winston-Salem, the founder of Press 53, a publisher of poetry and short fiction. And Carolyn York, president of the North Carolina Poetry Society and former president of the Lee County Arts Council. If any of them are in attendance, I'd like to ask if they would please stand and be recognized and thanked at this time. Thank you. Thank you. Now it is my great honor to introduce to you someone who has been a tremendous supporter of the Department of Cultural Resources in arts, history, libraries, archives, historic sites, and historic preservation. He understands the importance of the Department of Cultural Resources to economic development and jobs and to tourism, but most importantly, he understands that it is the quality of life that makes North Carolina the very best state in this nation. As a member of his cabinet, I see every day his dedication and passion for the people of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, the 74th Governor of the state of North Carolina, the Honorable Pat McCrory.
Thank you very much. I love coming into this beautiful chambers, built in 1841. And every time I come here, I just think of the history that's been made in this room and the people that made North Carolina what it is today. And it constantly reminds me is that we didn't get here by accident. We got here through a lot of hard work and dedication and passionate people. And we must never forget that history. So I come to this room often. My office is right below here, is where the original governor came here in 1841, and we moved over to one office about 50 years ago to give more room for administrative staff, but I have as much staff in this building as possible, so every time myself and hopefully members of my young staff walk into this building, they go, wow, never forget this moment and appreciate the moment of both the past, the present, and the future. And I also need to say thank you to Secretary Kluttz. She was a friend of mine as a fellow mayor. I was mayor of a small suburb of Salisbury for 14 years. And I saw her as just one of the most passionate people. And another area that she had a great deal of interest was in the arts. And if you ever go to Salisbury, North Carolina, they've done a great job in preserving some of the great historical buildings, which she has personally invested in, her and her husband, and some of the beautiful neighborhoods, including preserving some of the cemeteries from World War II in the city of Salisbury. And she did some fascinating things also in having traveling art exhibits come to Salisbury. Instead of having just buy art that would keep permanently, and for a town of that size it was very hard to afford, she started rotating art and getting it from other areas. And she brought some excitement not only in art but also in the preservation of history. So I just want to thank Secretary Kluttz for the incredible work that she's provided me for the last 2 years, and she is such an attribute to my my cabinet and to the state. And the only thing I tell her is she needs more passion. She's absolutely incredible. So y'all need to give Secretary Kluttz a round of applause. And let me say something that's not scripted. But I say this to my secretary, and I say this to each of you. I've learned my lesson. And in the long run, things are even going to get better. And I want to thank the Secretary again, and I want to thank the people that have been involved in this process, because it's been a learning process for me too. Will you accept that? It's been a learning process for me too. And hopefully through my own learning, we can then help educate people across the state regarding the importance of this very important position as he continues to communicate to rural and urban areas, east, west, Piedmont, the importance of the Word. And I look forward to continuing a relationship with you and also to our new Poet Laureate. It is a pleasure here tonight not only talk about the future, but to recognize Joseph for his incredible work. He has served as our Poet Laureate from 2012 through 2014. He's the one with the beret. I came up to him and I said, I love berets. And he said, not everyone can get away with wearing them. I think he was looking straight at me when he said that. He was looking straight at me. But I love them. I wish I could get away with wearing one, but they have a very great, distinguished French look. And he served his duties as Poet Laureate with vitality and passion. And during his time in this important position, he made 280 appearances. 280. He ain't doing this for the money, believe me. He's doing this because it's a passion, like many of you have this passion. In 45 different North Carolina counties. And I know we have 100 counties, but this is a big state. It is a huge state. And to visit 45 counties in that period of time, and believe me, I'm sure he drove through the other 40 or other over 60 to get there. He's contributed poems, stories, and essays to literary journals. He's published 2 books of poetry. And his signature project was to work, which is something that's very close to me and my wife, and that is with the military veterans, so that these men and women who serve our country can tell their story through the written word. And that is so important today because we've learned the past from military by reading these personal letters that they write, even right on the battlefield. And to have this communications with members of the military in what we consider North Carolina to be the most military-friendly state is very, very important and meets the objective that many people in our administration have been working on very hard, and that is to thank the military and then is to help the military, especially as many members of the military come home from Afghanistan and Iraq. He has also collaborated with the Touring Theater of North Carolina in Greensboro, my old hometown, to create a Reader's Theater production of veterans writing, a production entitled Deployed. Joseph, your contributions as Poet Laureate to the people of North Carolina, I would like to have you come up here for a second, and I want to make a very special presentation and maybe read a little poem to you. On behalf of the state of North Carolina, I'd like to present to you the Order of the Longleaf Pine. Here's to the land of the longleaf pine, the summer land where the sun don't shine, where the wheat grows strong and the strong grow great. Here's to down home, the old North State. A wonderful poem, isn't it? Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
I'm struggling to get my glasses out of my pocket. Thank you, Governor McCrory. Greetings, Secretary Kluttz of the Department of Cultural Resources, Wayne Martin, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Arts Council, an agency that has meant so very much to me and to all of us for so many years. The last time I stood in this room, September 20th, 2012, for my own installation as Poet Laureate, I stated that I foremost wanted to recognize Joan Carey Bethany, my beloved wife of 35 years, now 37 years, my constant companion and best friend since the day I first laid eyes upon her over 36 years ago, now 38 years ago. I reiterate that humble gratitude again today. Thank you, Joan, the one and only Muse Laureate, the mantle of which you wear like no other. Enormous thanks to my special friends at the Arts Council, Nancy Trevelyan, Jeff Pettis, Ardith Weaver, Vicki Vitiello, Rebecca Moore, and Burdette Sutherland. Special thanks to David Patorti for being such a gracious, grand friend who stood by me with savvy and good cheer every step of the way. And of course to my Poets Laureate predecessors, Sam Reagan, Fred Chappell,
Kay Byer, Kathy Smith Bowers, what an extraordinary honor to follow in your blazing footsteps. And of course, profound and loving greetings from Joan as well to my fellow writers, dear friends and colleagues here today to celebrate the glorious occasion of Shelby Stephenson's installation as North Carolina Poet Laureate. I cannot conceive what it would be like to be a writer elsewhere without your friendship, love, and fierce advocacy, not only for the integrity of writers in this state and their crucial art, but for all the arts, for the teachers, for the children they teach, and the health reading and writing brings to our great state and its citizens. What we have here as North Carolina writers, as a community together, remains the envy of others elsewhere, and it will endure because of how generous, how good, how tough you are. Nothing in my life has made me prouder than to be counted among your ranks. Thank you more than I can say. Last year around this time, while I was still the Poet Laureate of North Carolina, I was asked by Kevin Watson to supply a blurb for Fiddle-dee-Dee, Shelby Stephenson's extraordinary series of psalm-like lyrics, what Grace Cavalieri in her 2002 interview with Shelby called a book-length opera that Press 53 so beautifully reissued under its imprint this fall. In contemplating my task, I realized that Shelby's voice, the sound and pitch, the love that beats so steadily for everything in it, rings ever in my head, that I conjure it at will when I write, that it travels with me as one with whom Shelby comes in contact. I realized as well how much Shelby and his poems, how much he and Linda, their marriage and the literal music that marriage has produced has meant to me since I first met him about 30 years ago at St. Andrew's College in Laurinburg, how kind he was, how kind he remains. The following is what I said in my blurb, and it strikes me now in the wake of Shelby's appointment as North Carolina's new Poet Laureate is almost clairvoyant. Shelby Stephenson can walk out his back door, even in his sleep, it seems, so tithed to the land is his subconscious, and see what lies hidden before our very eyes in the roots and plow soles, the tree bark and creek beds, and his beloved specter ancestors forever singing in his head. He writes about the mystery of the dirt, what it yields, what it reclaims, with more precision and prescience than any poet I can think of. I hear him now, whispering his sacramental litany, his invocation. It is nothing but a song, the long journey home. Fiddle-dee-dee is Shelby at his best. Blessed be his holy liturgical verse, the bard, the very voice of North Carolina. Blurbs are notoriously hyperbolic, but I do not think I exaggerated a bit. If anything, I held back. What I did not say, but I think is implicit, as clear as his poems, is that Shelby was born to be North Carolina's Poet Laureate. Born in a plank house, the son of tobacco farmers Paul and Madel Stephenson of western Johnston County, we will never have another Poet Laureate so steeped in the lore and history and sacrosanctity of our soil. He truly is the voice of North Carolina, its psalmist, if you will. Shelby and I, unbelievably enough, spent 2 years or so together in Pittsburgh, the town I was born and grew up in, without ever having met. While I was in the 7th and 8th grades at Sacred Heart School, he was studying for his master's degree in English literature at the University of Pittsburgh, a little less than 2 miles down the avenue, my one-day alma mater. This was back in 1966 and 67. Our paths surely would have crossed. In fact, I would follow in his footsteps, receiving some years later my master's in English literature from Pitt, and inexplicably come under the spell of Shelby's favorite professor there, Harry J. Mooney, my favorite as well. In an email some years back, Shelby said to me, Harry Mooney was something out of this world and in it. I'm not sure I ever told him. I took a sophomore English course with Dan Patterson at Chapel Hill, and we got to Faulkner, and Patterson said the subject was the bear. Here's a handout. Go home and paste it in your bathroom, right where you'll see it, this genealogy of the McCaslin family, and study it. I did, and what Patterson no doubt intended did not take. I hardly knew what a bathroom was. With Mooney, said Shelby. All that clicked right in, snug, and I was old enough. I had left AT&T and courting Nin. This was 1966, and I could feel Mooney's vibes. Family is everything. Harry J. Mooney's patience I won't forget. To teach like that, I felt Shelby's vibes before I even met him. Apprenticing as a kid unwittingly to him, lo, nearly half a century ago on the streets of Pittsburgh, and now today in our second shared home, North Carolina, I will not forget Shelby's patience. And yes, to teach like that, to teach like Shelby, my goodness, to write like Shelby, our much beloved Poet Laureate.
Note to the governor's staff, never follow a poet laureate again. That was incredible. You've got a lot of pressure on you right now. He just said I should have brought my guitar. Shelby Stephenson's poetry expresses the heart and spirit of our land and people. He is a wonderful representative of the traditions of poetry and literature in our state. And let me say before further describing his bio is this was not an easy decision, because the process that we went through this time was a process, and we saw so many incredible writers who any one of them would have been great representatives of this state. But as the committee reviewed this, and then my secretary reviewed this, and then when they brought all the applicants to the mansion, we literally sat down and she told me the recommendation, and then I said, I want to see all of it. And I looked through the list of names and looked at the work of other people considered that this committee had to review. And first of all, I want to just thank everyone else who also wanted to volunteer for this position, because you too were extremely well qualified, and it just shows that we've got a very strong bench for future poet laureates. Let's give them a round of applause and say thank you. In reading about Shelby, it's a fascinating background. He grew up on a farm in Johnson County, not far from here. It used to be way out from here. Now some would say it's a suburb. So when you read the poem that is included in the back of your program, he was writing about farm life from a firsthand experience in an agricultural state. It still is a very strong agricultural state, the number one industry in our state. But he was writing it from personal experience. He was inspired by his father, a storyteller, to share his stories about family and life through poetry. He received a PhD in literature and joined the faculty of the University of North Carolina, Pembroke, where he edited the Pembroke magazine for over 30 years. He is a recipient of the North Carolina Award for Literature, and in 2014 was inducted into the North Carolina Literary Hall of Fame. Shelby, another thing that impresses me about you, and we had a phone conversation also, aside from the awards, the 12 poetry books, the poems appearing in numerous magazines, is that you are also a very talented musician. And I'm a big fan of music, and I love music when it's combined with poetry. I grew up listening to Dylan and Lennon McCartney and others, and it was poetry that made the difference with other groups that I enjoyed listening to. And Shelby has 4 CDs, and they're recorded with someone who he loves very, very much, and I could just see the love that you have for your wife, Linda, and I see your focus, and you're so proud of her also. And we need to also give his wife, Linda, a round of applause and say thank you. So Shelby, it is now my privilege and pleasure to introduce you as North Carolina's Poet Laureate. Thank you and congratulations. Come on up.
Thank you, Governor McCrory, and thank you, Wayne Martin, Executive Director, North Carolina Arts Council. Thank you, Secretary of Cultural Resources, Susan Kluttz, and thank you, Joseph Pathanti, North Carolina's Poet Laureate 2012 to 2014, and thank you all for coming today. I especially thank my family for being here, and more particularly my editor. Thank you, Nin. I'm going to read from Fiddle-de-Dee, starting with two quotes. The first from a Mother Goose nursery rhyme. Fiddle-de-dee, fiddle-de-dee, the fly has married the bumblebee. And this one from the Song of Solomon. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Saying, I need an image to make the world, I went back home and held my eyes on the hill, and it said, you need a word deeper than I. So I took the old fence rails the lizards ran, and my family's tongue came out of the mouth of Buzzard's branch, the sound of that one story, everywhere in the marshes, the fields, and low grounds. And I said, where is the word that holds all I'm trying to say? And the cows lowed through their cuds over and over. It is nothing but a song. Out of an incremental memory, I sing the outgoing redness of childhood, never forming in one visible image, yet definite as the hayfield offering its ritual, real in an unimaginary way, for getting up hay never interested me, the dust in my lungs, my sweaty shirt itching. I entered the world itching, confused as I still am, figuring in the lower swamp a deeper meaning with my companions. My probings lost in the taunts I'd let bounce like sticks thrown on brick. Hay red on the head, runt, freckles, cross eyes, four eyes, smoke, chub. And as I grew, I said yes, and yes again, until all the bullies in me at Cleveland School melted in a vat with hogs roiling in chains on killing day, a ritual discovering the self I can never touch, that dark, evil light that glows in eggs mornings when the sun is right and the chicken is pipping. The egg hatched, and the chicken's bones raised up into one dazzling world, from the hopping flea wanting a place to stop to the remaining apple blossoms scattering like crumbs from God's table. I was born June 14, 1938, Flag Day, in the sign of the Gemini on the wheel of changing change in a pure accident. One identity coming out of the other as a river of youth runs in a river of death. Nature created out of the self's mask. One protean being turning me into a giant when I'd read about Jack and his cow. and into a man when I'd see the hulk of a man under the coat. In the contest between the sun and the wind, the sun winning, and I'd feel the helpless helper in myself, integrated into perfect motion, its tendencies never to be finished in and out of itself. A June child embodies the opposites, confounding us always to see the grave and humorous on the threshold of art about to form out of the counterpoise, to leave a deposit with earning power. Look hard in the glory of your means. Let go the body. The cardinal flowers stretch across the landscape, handsome in their high keys. There goes a planked house into a hedge. We come from a desert of innumerable dances made in pain and pleasure, arriving forever. America's promise, huckleberry laid back every spring when the little green corn is sighted. What broken clods to bounce in the dirt. The literature of the world is the people. Whitman, where are you? Our faculties run out into the unknown. Results are beginning, continuously extending the plain chance to hold a seat here, hardy as a foot soldier. An articulate voice lowers to let the mind down so the undergarments might hear humanity in the bosom, stumbling back to breathe independently. Transitory, we bequeath to thee, O death, this victorious song thou breaks, the word of the singer, his parentage and home, the wood and the flames, a quiet crackle of no hurry, going up and out, moving the dust that settles the ashes, a tune of far-away injury of happiness, a bliss that is hard to empty. Time and space affirm the rhythm, the dimensions of a cross and a round. Wrap a tent around the music and steal away. Images edge the feelings like heels grinding lightly on a board of closest imaginative stances, delighting the reapers and the wheat, the keepers and the creek. The word is another form of dancing. The body moves on the surface just over truth. We live amid the skin. The true art of experience is practiced by the skipper bugs. They skate so well. I clap my hands and the water scoots awake, beating with a new beauty, and the line that begins behind is brought forward. I look back one more time to draw a radiance in language, a radical system, formless and grammatically mountainous and divine, mortal as the fertilizing rain, a lingering space that gives the celebration a morning, noon and night swallowed up by the dallying and playing world, holding the ancient beard in an avenging dance, a cosmos fragility, high in the pocket of a farmhouse. I am alone, a laughing moon brightening like orange on ice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby. And again, congratulations on your appointment as Poet Laureate. And thank you all for being here for this inspiring ceremony. At the conclusion of the program, our ushers will assist you in exiting this chamber and directing you downstairs to the rotunda for a reception. And now, if you'll please stand for the recession of the governor and the platform guests, and as they leave, please give them and the Poet Laureate program a final round of applause.